Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and I'm here with another episode of Around the World in Books. If you're not caught up, basically what this series is I am trying to read a book by an author from every country around the world. This is episode... ooh, I don't even know. This is episode 7 and we are going back to Southeast Asia. I know in my last video that I did for Southeast Asia, which was I think the second video that I did for this series, some of them probably classified more as just South Asia, not Southeastern Asia, but these ones are all truly Southeast Asia. I fixed my spreadsheet to have that as a region because there are a lot, even if you divide it up by South and Southeast Asia. So we're gonna focus a little bit more, but I am gonna start this video by going through my books that I chose for it. Got my computer out with my spreadsheet, so we're gonna walk through what all I've chosen. The first country that I picked for today's video is Thailand, and for this one I chose The Happiness of Koti by Jane Vejajiva. Don't know if I'm saying that right. The internet gave me lots of mixed signals on that, and I don't think that this one has a translator. So it must have been written initially in English, but this one is just a nice short little book about this girl whose mom has, what's the illness? Her mom has ALS, and so then you're basically just following the experience of this little girl through her eyes, and that's kind of what this book is. So that's my pick for Thailand. Then the next book is for Vietnam, and this is The Sorrow of War by Bao Ninh, something like that. And basically this is a story about a North Vietnamese soldier during the Vietnam War. I cannot tell how much this is a memoir versus how much this is like a historical fiction based on real life, if that makes sense. I might have to do a little bit more digging to see exactly what this background is behind this book, but this one is one that was initially very controversial when it was published in Vietnam, but I think will be very interesting reading to get the other side of what we get a lot of times here in America. And I've heard a lot of people and a lot of the reviews say that it is very sad and heavy. So I'm mentally gearing up for this one. But this one was translated by, ooh, I did not look up how to say the translator's name. Pan Tan Hao, something like that. I will put it on the screen. But that's my pick for Vietnam. And then the next book I actually don't have yet. It is on its way to me in the mail. I just barely ordered it, but that is my pick for Singapore. And this is The Best I Could by Subhas Anandan. This one is a memoir, I guess would maybe be the best word for it. I'm not sure entirely, but basically he is a criminal defense lawyer. And so this is his book that he wrote all about his life and his different trials that he was involved in. Apparently he's really famous in Singapore, and so I think it'll be a very fascinating one. I think it's very interesting, the whole concept of criminal defense lawyers and how lots of times they're defending people that maybe are guilty, and it sounds like this book kind of dives into his thoughts on defending the criminals essentially, and how everybody has a right to be defended even if they are the perpetrator. So I'm very fascinated by that one. That one is coming in the mail, so we'll see at what point I read it in this video, but hopefully it will be here pretty soon. And then the last one is the book that is the whole reason why I decided to go back to Southeast Asia. I got this book for Christmas last year. I have been waiting for the right time to read it when I felt like I was ready and in the mood. And that is The Fisherman King by Katrina Modad. And this one I believe was written in English, so I don't think it has a translator. But this one is one of the few fantasies that I've been able to find for these videos. There's just not a lot of fantasy or sci-fi or some of those types of genres coming out of certain regions of the world. I know there probably are some if you dig, and there's probably more if you read multiple languages, but there's not a lot that are coming out in English. So I'm really excited about this one. Honestly, the cover got me on this one. It's so cool. But this is my pick for Brunei. I hope I'm saying that right. And I actually bought 2 of her books because they're so pretty. My husband got them for me for Christmas, but we're gonna read this one first. It sounds like it is very based in Brunei folklore, so I'm very, very excited for this one. I think I'm probably gonna save this one for the end, but we'll see. Depending on when my other book comes in the mail, I might pick this one up before that one. That being said, I am filming this intro a little bit after I've started reading these books because I kept meaning to film it and I kept meaning to film it, and then I'd get home from work, and with daylight savings it's now dark, and so the lighting just wasn't good. So I kept just not filming the intro for this video. So I have actually finished one of the books already, and that is The Happiness of Kati, or Katie. I don't know. It feels wrong to say it Katie. I think it's Kati. But I actually really, really enjoyed this book. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. Sometimes the more literary fiction books that are like hard to describe a plot are not my favorite because I feel like I'm a very big plot reader. I love mysteries and thrillers, I love my fantasies, I want a good plot, but this was actually such a cute little book, and I think it really helped that I was just in the perfect mood for this. I've spent all of October reading thrillers and fantasies and just really high-paced, high-stress books, and so I was kind of just ready for something that was a little bit more chill, something that wasn't going to get me so sucked in and crazy, and this is just really cute. It definitely is a study of grief through a child's point of view. Like I said earlier, her mom has been diagnosed with ALS, and basically, which is like a muscular, what's the word for it? I don't know how to explain it, but basically like where your muscles start to deteriorate. And so it gets to the point where her daughter's like a little baby, and she's like dropping her a lot and stuff like that. And so she sends her daughter to live with her grandparents. And then basically it gets to the point where she knows she doesn't have long left to live, so they bring the daughter back, and her daughter gets to spend the final few days of her mom's life with her. And it's this very interesting thing where you're totally in the perspective of a little kid, and so as you're going through, there's like, so for example, let's see if I can show it. Up on the top you'll have like the chapter name, and then you'll have basically kind of the overarching thing about what her mom is happening right now, and then the chapters themselves are just these small little details that like kids would notice, right? Like it's not dealing so much directly with the grief for at least the first majority of the book. You're more so like, here's all of the things that are just happening in her daily life, but with these subtitles on the chapters, you're getting all this like overarching story of her deeper, bigger emotions, while she's focused on her little tiny details of her day-to-day life. And it's just a really sweet book. I will say there's probably some trigger warnings that you'd want to be aware of. It does deal with death and chronic illnesses and some situations where basically she's never met her dad. Her dad is like not part of her life, so you're dealing with that as well. Overall, I actually really, really enjoyed it. I think I'm giving it like a 4.25. It was a very cute book. It's a very quick read, and just really good. I think you need to be in the right mood for it, but if you are in the mood for a short, just tiny details, shows you just how wise little kids can be, great book. And then I have started The Sorrow of War. I am currently 36 pages into it. The font for these page numbers is really hard to read. But basically you're following Kin, who's a North Vietnamese soldier. He's in his early 20s, I think, from what I've read so far. And again, I cannot tell how much this is based on an actual individual person's story, or if this is like more fictionalized based off of like a bunch of people's stories. I feel like it might be kind of based off of the author's life, but I can't tell for sure. This weird spot of light is bugging me, but so far I'm enjoying it. It's very straightforward. Definitely already gotten pretty, I don't know if graphic's the right word, but it's explaining a lot of stuff. It's definitely kind of heavy. Yeah, again, I'm only like 36 pages in, so not super far. I'm going to go and continue reading this one, and I will update you when I have more thoughts. Hi guys. I got my package. This is the most heavy duty, crazy packaging I've ever seen, and I do not know where my scissors are. So hopefully Okay, I think it's gonna rip. There we go. I don't understand why it's packaged like this, but I now have it. This is actually a really nice book. Oh, are there pictures? Okay, no, there's just one page with some pictures. But I finally got the next book, so I will be picking this up probably after I finish the one that I'm currently reading. Just as an update while I'm here, I am currently... These page numbers are seriously the hardest font to read. I think I'm on page 78, so not crazy far, but I'm making progress. This book is just one of those books where it's just kind of heavy. It's not necessarily bad, it's just slow to read because it's kind of emotionally taxing. And I wouldn't say I'm like super invested in it, but it's enough that it's just not a book that makes you really crave picking up. Once I'm in it and I'm going, then I've been reading decent amounts. Like, it's not bad once you get into it, but it's just really hard to want to go and read a book that is just kind of depressing. So that's the best way I can explain it. It's not my favorite style of writing. It's very stream of consciousness. There are also no chapters. So like, this is all just one big long continuous stream of consciousness, just his thoughts. And those aren't my favorite books. I feel like I just am really a plot reader, and so stream of consciousness is not my favorite style of writing. I think it really works for some people, but it doesn't work super great for me personally. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the book with this book. I am kind of dragging through it just a little bit, but hopefully I can find some time to just really sit down and bust through it, and then I can move on to the other one. But yeah, that's where we're sitting with this book so far, and I will update you probably when I finish this one. This lighting's not the best, but it's dark, so this is what we're getting. But I'm here with an update because I have finished The Sorrow of War, and honestly I'm so happy to be done with this book. This is one of those books that I just have a really hard time deciding how I want to rate it, because it's real stuff, right? It's like true things that happened, but it's just really, really hard to read. And part of that is just that it's heavy content. Part of it is just that it's types of content and stuff I don't love to read. There's definitely a lot of things about like rape in here and those just really, really bug me. So that part I really, really struggled with. I think I'm giving it a 2.75. It's not necessarily that it's bad writing. It's just really made me uncomfortable in a lot of parts, and it's very stream of consciousness, and I just struggle with those types of books. I am a huge plot-based reader, and so when it's all over the place like that, I really, really struggle to stay in the story, because it's really just like every few paragraphs you're jumping into a totally different train of thought, and it just was really, really hard for me to keep up with and get into. So I kind of dragged myself through this one, but if you don't get so bugged about those types of content and you feel like you could handle like a heavier, very just depressing book, it's one of those things that just kind of makes you lose your faith in humanity type of a book. It's definitely, like, I think it's kind of pitched as we're telling the story of North Vietnam, but it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, like, we're humans too, let's humanize like the other side that you don't normally hear from. It's very much so we're all bad type of a book. Like, we're all human and we are all have our stories and our good things, but we're also all like just terrible people, and war is just bad, and there's just really nothing good in it. And a lot of it is focused on like PTSD, and I mean, what the what the title says. It's basically like the sorrows that come because of war, essentially. So it's much less about like actually following what happened during the war and much more so about how that affected people's lives, and especially those soldiers that, like the character you're following enlisted when he was 18 or 17. He might have been 17. Like as teenagers, they're going into war and it's lasting for years of their life. So it's very much so focused on that, which just makes it a really, really heavy read. So I'm kind of glad to be able to be done and move on with that one. I think if it's something that, based on that, sounds like something you'd be interested in, it's not bad writing. Like, good. Just be aware, trigger warnings galore, content warnings galore. Definitely not for a younger audience. It is an adult type of a book. But yeah, that's The Sorrow of War. I have also started The Best I Could, and this one I'm very fascinated about. This one, I think I've explained what it is, but it's basically he's Singapore's most well-known, famous criminal defense lawyer, and this is his autobiography, memoir. How do you I don't know what the difference is between them, but I have gotten through the foreword and the introduction, or no, the preface. That's what it's called. So the foreword and the preface, which is like 26 pages, and already this guy's life is fascinating. I think he's so interesting. He's very blunt and straightforward. So I think this will be a really interesting read. It also, there's one part in here at the end of the preface where he talks about who he wrote this book for. Yeah, he says, I have written for the man in the street, not for the students and the lawyers to analyze. So it's very much so plain language, just laying out his story. And I think what it is, it sounds like we get a few of his like early years, and then he selected some of the cases that he worked on, and he like specifically breaks down those cases. So it looks like there's maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 cases. And then some reflections just about his thoughts on things. So very fascinated about this one. It's also really big. It's like this is a normal size paperback. This is this book. So it's one of those like extra large paperbacks, but I'm really excited about this one. This guy is fascinating. He was falsely accused and put in prison by like corrupt police. He has all sorts of health issues, and then he's just this really well-known criminal defense lawyer. So I think it's going to be a fascinating read. I'm really excited about it. So we're going to dive into this one, and then we will end it off with the one I'm most excited for. Okay, it's time for an update because I have finished The Best I Could. This book was actually fascinating. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a very quick read. It's very simple and straightforward, which I loved. It just kind of is a quick overview of his life, of some of the cases that he's done. And yeah, it was just really fun and very interesting. I gave it a 4.5 star. I actually quite enjoyed this. So if you're looking for some nonfiction to read that gets you someone that you maybe have never heard of before, this is a really good option. I honestly don't have a ton more to say about it because they're really just I don't know, it was just so straightforward and simple that I just don't have a lot of thoughts, but it was very good. This definitely got me out of my little bit of a book slump that I've been falling into. I feel like The Sorrow of War took me so long and I just was not enjoying it, and so this really picked things back up for me. But now that that is finished, we can officially start The Fisherman King, and I'm so excited about it. I really don't have anything super tons to say. Wow, looking through this, there's snakes all in the inside too. Wait, let me find one. I feel like there's snakes in the chapters. So if you don't like snakes, this probably is not the book for you, because it's apparently going to be a big thing. But I'm very excited for this. I don't know how much I'm going to film while I'm reading this, because we are about to head down to Utah for Thanksgiving, and we're going to be spending lots of time with family and stuff, so I'll probably just read this a little bit here and there as we're down there. So I don't know how much I will talk or film while I read this, but when this is done, I will come back and I will update you and we'll wrap up this video, and that will be the end of it. So let's go get into The Fisherman King. Alright guys, I'm back with my final update. I have finished The Fisherman King, and this one was the perfect one to end on. We're ending it on a good note. I really enjoyed this one. It's not a perfect book in my opinion, but it was a really fun read. First thing I will say about this, if you are scared of snakes, don't read this book. I'm not really someone who pictures books in my head a ton. I'm just more so reading, like I understand what's going on, but I'm not visually picturing it. I feel like that's not super common, but something about this writing, I feel like I just had a picture in my head the whole time, which got really unfortunate actually, because there are so many snakes. There are so many deep water scuba diving with snakes. So if you have a phobia of snakes, don't read this book. It is very, very, very centered around snakes. I will say, as far as the fantasy goes in this, it's very minimal. For a lot of the book, I was like, is this a fantasy? Did I just get my information wrong? There is some magic, but it's not super heavy-handed at all. There's basically a god of sorts, a god, a devil, something along those lines, that is a snake. It is a giant snake, and that's kind of the main fantasy element of it. This is also very much so more of a folktale than a fantasy, in that you don't have a happy ending necessarily. It's very, you're seeing the consequences of people's actions and the things that they are willing to give up for other things, and don't expect a happy ending. The main thing that I didn't enjoy about this book is it felt very surface level. Like there was a lot of stuff that I'm just not sure I quite grasped the significance of what was happening, and I'm thinking that part of that is that this is based off of folklore and from Brunei. Brunei? It's been too long since I googled it, but I feel like I just don't know the underlying folklore, and that was a big part of what you needed in order to understand the book. So I definitely feel like I was at a slight disadvantage, and maybe it would have felt better if I knew the stories already that it was based off of. As it is, since I don't know those stories, it felt a little surface level, and I would have liked a couple hundred more pages. The writing was really good. I'm very excited that I have another one of her books on my shelf, so I can't wait to read that. But not a perfect book, but I did really enjoy it. I think I'm gonna give it like a 4.25 stars. So I highly recommend if you could get your hands on it. I know it's really easy to get on a Kindle. It is really pricey to ship it to America, but I'm very happy that I own it because it is so pretty, and I actually quite enjoyed this book. So a good read, maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And with that, we have now reached the end of this video, so I thought I'd do a quick little recap on this. First book that we read, Happiness of Kati, a very short, sweet book. Nothing crazy, but I did enjoy it. The Sorrow of War, not my favorite. This one definitely kind of slumped me out a little bit, but really that's all I have to say about it. I don't have a ton of thoughts. I don't know that I'd particularly recommend this one unless you were intentionally going into it just to use it as a study of somebody else's point of view. That's really the main thing I would say this book is good for. The best I could, this one was fascinating. I actually thoroughly enjoyed this one. I would actually be interested in reading the other book that this author wrote. He, according to the end of it, I'm not sure if I already said this, but he dictated it while he was on dialysis before he died. So would also be very interested to pick up that book at some point. Would recommend this one. And then of course The Fisherman King, my favorite one in this video. I loved it. So that is my experience with some Southeast Asian authors. Again, this is part 2. I have done one more, but that one was kind of Southeast and East Asian combined. This one was solidly Southeast Asian authors. I have not finished the entire region, so I will be coming back at some point. If you have recommendations for some of the other countries in Southeast Asia, I would love them, because the countries that I haven't gotten to yet are the ones that I'm kind of having a hard time finding books for. So if you have recommendations, I would really, really love them, specifically for this region, because I have some of those countries that I am struggling to find books for. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know which region you would like to see me read from next. I have been gathering some books to do maybe a Middle East region. I'm trying to think if I have any other ones that I've already gathered. Where's my phone? I apparently don't have it. I'm getting close to having hit some books in every region, but I definitely have some more that I need to hit. So let me know what you would like to see next, and if you have any recommendations, I would love them, because the research for these videos are really hard. But without further ado, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye.